Welcome back to Designsmith. Today we are going to be taking 3 classic Shoegaze album covers and redesigning them in Swissdesign. Shoegaze album covers tend to be very detailed, using a lot of abstract imagery and complex layering of images. However, what if the opposite were true? What if it was the norm to have very minimalist Shoegaze album covers? That's what we're going to be exploring today. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to support the channel. Okay, so if you are a Shoegaze fan, then you probably already know what these 3 spots are for. Obviously, we're going to be designing for Loveless, Suvlaki, and Nowhere. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in right here, and what I'd like to do is I would like to go ahead and get all of my type laid down on the artboard, and then just kind of take it from there in terms of the colors and everything. However, one thing that I am going to do is lay down some guides. And since we're dealing with an album cover and not an 18 by 24 sheet, I'm going to have to make some guides. So this size right here is 12.5 by 12.5 inches, which is the size of a record sleeve. So I'm going to set this first guide in at 1/2 inch. However, we have to account for that 1/4 inch bleed on all sides. So all we need to do is add 1 extra 1/8 inch, which will be 0.625. So I'm going to do this around all of our sides right here. And I'll go ahead and do the other 2 as well. Okay, so we have those outer guides set up. However, we have to set up our rows and our columns. So for Swissdesign, I like to go 3 sections across like this, 1, 2, 3, and then 5 sections down. If you'd like to learn more about how to set up a Swiss grid, then check out this video right up here. Okay, so we have all of our rows here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 going down. And now I'm gonna select all of my vertical guides and go over here to the Align panel and click on Horizontal Distribute Space. That's going to give us equal spacing between all of those guides. And now we'll do the same thing with the horizontal guides. And now we have perfect spacing across our grid. And now all I have to do is select these 2 in the center, hit copy, and come over here and paste these into here, and we'll do our alignment here. And we don't have to worry about the horizontal guides, those are already taken care of here. Okay, we're now set up and we're ready to go ahead and start laying down type. But first I'm going to go over here to View, and Guides, and Lock Guides. Okay, and one thing that I'd like to carry through is I'd like to keep everything lowercase. That's pretty typical when it comes to Shoegaze stuff, and it also looks really great in Swissdesign. And I know what you're probably thinking if you've been around for a while. You're over there thinking that he's going to break his rule by using Helvetica. Well, sorry to disappoint you, but I am sticking to my rule through the end of this year. It's been difficult to not use Helvetica. However, one of my favorite Swissdesign fonts is Manrope. This is a fantastic font. It's free and open source through Google Fonts, and I highly recommend it. So what I'm doing now is just laying down some type. Now, for the most part, there's only going to be 2 blocks of text on this album cover because that's traditionally what's on an album cover. When you're doing Swiss posters, you typically have a lot of extra things that you can add onto the poster. However, when it comes to album covers, it's the artist and the title of the album. So these 3 albums right here are going to be limited in terms of the elements that are on them. We're only going to have the artist, the title, and some kind of a graphic. So let's go ahead and set some rules for the type size. And I've put together a video for you that has a formula for you to use for your Swissdesign poster, so check that out right up here. So I'm going to set my base size, and we can set this at probably 100 points. That looks good. And then our secondary type size is going to be 30% of what our primary type size is. And if we've got this set to 100, then this will be 30. However, we do have these reversed, and I'll tell you why. When it comes to an artist's album, what should be more prominent, the name of the artist or the name of the album? I would argue the name of the album. The name of the artist can certainly be secondary, but the title is the most important thing. So let's swap these. Okay, so for now we have both of these set at auto kerning, but I'm going to go ahead and set this to optical, and that doesn't mean that we're finished. This just gives us a really good starting point for kerning the type. So I'm going to zoom in here, and we'll just start with the artist name, and we're going to go really old school Swissdesign principles here and get really nice tight kerning while still giving it plenty of breathing room. If you're wanting to go old school Swiss typography, then it needs to be fairly tight. Okay, now let's go in here and kern the title. Okay, in general, these are looking good. Now just remember that kerning is definitely not an exact science. It's a combination of art and opinion, and it also depends on any kind of design principles that you've established beforehand. Okay, so I'm gonna bring my guides back, and now we need to place this type. Let's get it exactly where we want it, and I'm just gonna play around with it and just kind of see what layout I like best. I like the idea of it being in the bottom right corner right here. And what we'll do is we'll align the bottom part of our letter L right here with that guide, because these letters right here, the E and the S right here, those are descenders. And those descenders of that type are going to go below the baseline. So that's what you want to align it to, are letters that do not have any ascenders or descenders. And then horizontally, we will align it to this point right here, not this point, because this is a horizontal descender. I don't know if that is a technical term, but it's something that I came up with just to help you familiarize yourself with the concept of descenders going not only vertically, but also horizontally. All right, so we'll align this to the right and cause the type to disappear. So let's go over here and grab this. And now that we've set this S right up here, we can select both of these text blocks, click on the Loveless one up here, and that will create a key object for us to align our type to. And now in Align, I'm going to go up here and make sure that Align to Glyph Bounds point text and area text are both checked. What that's going to do is it's going to align the type to the exact shape of the type instead of the text box that surrounds it. And now with our key object still selected, we can go over here to Align to the right. So as you can see here, we've set that precedent for the horizontal descender, and that E is going to be exactly lined up with the outside edge of that S. Okay, we've got an interesting situation down here, and this is really kind of up to the designer in terms of where you want to place the name of the artist. But as you'll notice, we are aligned to the vertical guide right here, but we're not aligned to any horizontal guide. And what you can do in this case is you can set a certain amount between the title and the artist, or you can select both objects just like we did earlier and set a key object. And then you can go over here to distribute spacing, and you can click on vertical distribute space and set a certain amount of spacing between those two text blocks. And that's what I'm going to do in this particular video. I did make another video that shows you how to do sub-quadrants in your Swiss designs, so check that out if you want to learn more. But in this video, I'm going to set the spacing between these to 1/4 inch. Okay, let's take away our guides, and this is definitely utilizing a good amount of that white space around the type and giving us plenty of room to work with any kind of a graphic if we want to. So as you can see, a lot of work has already gone into placing the type on the artboard, but getting a really good foundation and actually establishing a structure is certainly going to help you in the creation of your Swiss projects, whether they're posters or album covers. Okay, so I'm going to bring my guides back up, and what I want to do now is I want to hit copy and paste, and we're going to just kind of move this over here onto this artboard. I'll go ahead and change the title of this to Suvlaki and change the artist to Slow Dive. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here on this side. I'm going to get my album title and then Ride. I'm going to speed up this next part because I'm going to go in and kern all of the type. Okay, so we have all of these kerned now, and what I'd like to do is go ahead and move these around and get some different placement here. And I think what we'll do in this middle one is go ahead and establish a black background so that we can make our type white. And what if we kind of did something like this, where we bring in the actual guide as part of the design? That's kind of what I'm seeing in my mind here. So what I'll do is I'll grab the pen tool and I'll create these little guides right here that are specifically meant to mimic the guides that are already on the sheet. And this is something that you can certainly do in your design, and it adds a lot of style to it. Whenever you're doing this, just make sure that you have your guides locked so you don't accidentally move them. Okay, that's looking really cool, and I would actually argue that this probably doesn't need anything beyond what we've laid out here, but I might still experiment with something and just kind of move things around a little bit. But one thing I do want to do is select all of these same stroke colors, and we'll group them together, and I'm going to change the color of them to like kind of a dark gray color. And we'll go over here and grab the type and go to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. That way the type is in front of those guides. Okay, so now let's align this type with the bottom of this U right here. Let's bring up our guide so that we can snap-ish to it. And then this S right here is actually going to be aligned right there where this curve is, because this is a horizontal ascender. All right, and now we're going to go down here to the artist name and align this with our guide and do the same thing with this lowercase s. All right, let's take away our guides. That is looking really cool. Part of me does wonder what would happen if we rotated everything in this design, so let's check it out. And apparently at some point our grids became blue. So let's change that back to dark gray. I think that looks a lot better. And now we will try our rotation thing and see what happens. So I'm gonna hit R, and we'll rotate probably at like 22 degrees. That looks good. All right, that's looking really cool. I like this a lot. So what we'll do is swap over to our outline mode and grab our direct selection tool, which is A on your keyboard. And we're gonna bring up this anchor point right here just perfectly to the edge, so we don't have to create a clipping mask. And the reason we're in outline mode is because it shows you the original placement of the line that you're moving. So I'm gonna do the rest to all of these lines right here. Okay, we're finished with that, and I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking the exact same thing. I probably could have done a clipping mask and saved myself a whole bunch of time, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay, I really do love this, and I'm not gonna change anything else about this. So let's go ahead and move over to Loveless, and I'm gonna go grab some colors from the Loveless album cover. All right, here it is in all of its beautiful glory here. This is such an awesome album cover. I love all of the colors. So let's bring up our guide, and one thing that is very cool about this album cover is how disorientating it is. So I'm gonna copy this over here, and we're just gonna move this off to the side just in case we need to come back to it. So I'm gonna hit copy and paste in front. And what that's gonna do is take what we just copied, and it's gonna lay it directly on top of where we just copied it from. So we can keep the exact same position while still applying some cool effects to it. So what I'd like to do is a simple rotation. And I'm gonna move my anchor point to around where the center is right here. And I'm gonna do a simple rotation of 5 degrees. And instead of hitting OK, I'm gonna hit copy. And now I'm gonna hit Command or Control D on my keyboard, and that's gonna keep making copies of this, and I'm gonna stop right here. So I'm gonna grab the one that's in front, and let's go ahead and color drop this pink right here. And I'm gonna lock this layer so I can work with the next layer down. I'm gonna go over here to Effect, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I'm gonna apply some blur effects while dropping the opacity down each time I do it. Okay, so I dropped this down to 75%, and now I'm gonna lock it. And now I'm just gonna do the exact same for the next layer down. All right, so now I'm gonna go over here and unlock everything. And I want this pink layer right here to definitely be a little bit brighter. So we'll go with something kind of like this. And maybe what I can do is go over here and create like a darker version of this as the background, like this dark red, and that's looking really cool right there. And then for the My Bloody Valentine, we'll just kind of color drop this right here and make the same thing. And let's go ahead and lock these two right here, and then I'm gonna lock my background layer, and now I'm gonna grab all of these ones that are black, and we're gonna color drop this to a similar color to this pink, but not quite the same. I may go in here and just kind of darken it just a little bit more. So we get this really nice simplified version of this feeling of disorientation. And part of me does want to take this into Photoshop and maybe add some grain layers to it, but I'm trying to avoid any kind of extra effects for this. So I think that I'll leave this the way that it is. However, I am tempted to click on one of these red areas and see what happens. Okay, that's actually really cool, and it's very fitting to the feel of the album. However, I think it's a little bit too bright in terms of its contrast, so why don't we darken it just a little bit? And I think that's really cool right there, so I'm gonna leave it exactly as it is. It's jarring, it's hazy, just like the album itself. Okay, so for Rides Nowhere, I'm gonna do something different. Let's align both of these to the center, and I'm gonna go to the artboard and just center both of them on the artboard. And the placement of the type on the actual album cover is at the top, so I'm gonna kind of pay tribute to that, but I am going to raise this up just a little bit, so the placement of the type is situated a little higher than center. And there's not really a ton of work to do here because the actual album cover for Ride is already fairly minimalist. So I think that we'll do a background of blue. I'll just color drop this right here. And I'm gonna select both of these, and we're gonna go over here to this almost white color. And we've got these really cool waves right here as part of this, so I'd like to pay some kind of a tribute to that. And I think what we'll do is just create one of these strokes right here, and then I'll go over here to Effect, Distort and Transform, and go to Zigzag. And we'll make them nice and smooth. We'll change this to maybe 6 rides per segment and set the size at about 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna keep these at absolute because going relative makes the waves a lot higher, and I'm not really a big fan of that, at least not for this album cover. So I'm gonna hit OK, and let's go ahead and start our waves down here at the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and hide our guides for a second. And with our waves selected, I'm gonna go ahead and hold down Option or Alt and go over here to where this guide meets right here, and then let go. And I want to try blending these two waves. So let's select both of them. I'm going to hit Command Option B or Control Alt B on Windows. And this is using our blend tool, so it's filling in the gaps between those two elements. And let's go over here to the toolbar and double click on blend, and we can change this to specified steps. And right now we have 7 in between those two. If we want to add more, we can do that. And you can actually go pretty high with this. I think I'm going to go somewhere like around 40 and just hit OK. So that means that in between the 2 waves that we created earlier, there are 40 instances of those waves between the 2. Let's go ahead and hide our guides. And because this entire shape is kind of situated in the center, I'd like to balance out the type from the waves. So let's align this to the right side and then go up here to the top-ish. And then we'll bring this over here to our guide and we'll align this with that type right there. And then let's align the top of that H to that top guide right there. All right, let me get rid of everything that we don't need right here. I'll get rid of my guides so we can take a look at all 3 of these. Here they are, everybody's 3 favorite Shoegaze album covers in Swiss design. Swissgaze, if you will. Sorry, I'm a dad. I think that utilizing the colors of the actual album covers in creating these Swiss designs really does help to capture the feel and the emotion that these albums give off. I hope you enjoyed watching me play in Illustrator today, and I hope I taught you something. If you'd like for me to do more of these types of videos, definitely let me know down in the comments. Please be sure to subscribe to support the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.